Thanks everyone, thanks for coming along. Randy Lineker is here on behalf of the Australian Commercial Galleries Association, so I'm speaking for myself really. And what I'd like to say is that, to pick up what Margaret was saying, was that what's really missed so far, I think, is that the ecosystem in which is based at TAFE. I would say that the majority, if not 80% of the artists that I represent or show here, really do require that 10 hours, 8 hours of teaching at TAFE in order for them to get the bread and butter on the table each week. Because all of us know that there isn't, at the end of the day, that much money in being an artist in this country. There's about 5% who do, and that's where everyone looks at. But the other 95% are here. And I represent a lot of those artists. And so that cycle of what TAFE is very, very important to them. And also, Barry O'Farrell is now going to stop my supply. I started up in Newcastle 10 years ago, and it was great to be able to pick out some artists, and we still do that, especially from Newcastle, and give them their first show. It's great pride and honour to do that, and for them it's a real thrill, and it starts them realising, hey, hang on, I could potentially be doing this. And so it's just great, not so much giving them that few $1,000, you know, at the end of their exhibition, but to see their confidence grow and to see that they can become creative Australians. And that to me is a real thrill, and that really does come from that furnace, which is TAFE, very much. Because what happens up in Newcastle is that you can get an advanced standing to then go on to Newcastle University. And believe me, for those kids who then go from TAFE to university, what a shock. What a shock it is. All of a sudden, they don't have that ingrained, involved teacher looking over your shoulder. They have to look after themselves because of the structure of the teaching at the university. And it takes them a long time to actually get into that gear of what that university means. So TAFE is vital in that way. The thing that really, really distresses me is that whenever we go and drive, all of us drive around regional Australia and go into a town, even the smallest has a 19th century building there that says School of Arts. It was all about that Victorian era. Isn't it shocking to think in the 21st century, our Victorian great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers were far more enriched than what we are now with this sort of decision-making that's going on. It was an arts and crafts movement that wanted to be involved, wanted to create the conversation visually, what it was to be an Australian. And on those regional towns, that is now being pulled out of them. I really feel for people like Matthew Tome and John Morris, who are in charge of the Newcastle Art School. It's got a 120-year tradition. And they have done so much to be so productive within all of that, and it's been pulled from under their feet. They're devastated. It's a beautiful old 19th century building. What happens now to that? Plumbers? It really is distressing. So that leads me on to the second thing that I'd just like to quickly say, is that, quite frankly, the reality is that you've been fucked over. You're not going, you really have been. Let's face it, O'Farrell is here for 8 years. The only thing that gives him an erection is a balance sheet, and one that is in surplus. That's the way he thinks. And you sort of got to ask, well, how come that Exocet missile went straight out and down into the fine art departments of TAFE? There's been so much complicity going on, and he and all of them think, oh, it's a very soft target. Maybe, but you know, like if you really think hard about it, I think it's this. I think that those sort of people are just really scared of creativity. They don't have it, they don't understand it, they don't want to know about it. And you know what? That is the best weapon that you guys have, is your own creativity. And it's that sort of thing that I think now is the time, and it's like Anne said, it's very appropriate that this show is on. I mean, this is, Michael Callahan is the guy that does those really searing, iconic posters of the 70s that were so directly political that they really meant something back then. And they've ended up at the National Gallery of Australia and the MCA. But that wasn't the intent then. The intent then was actually to be a voice and to be heard. And for all of you and for all of those students at TAFE, that's the message that should go back, is to be creative and be active in this. because how else are you going to win it? It's time to put down the second-hand Mirandis and really get stuck into this. It really is. And so, and I think you would find that there's so much support, like I said, within that ecosystem of every single level of the visual arts industry is there, distressed, in a bit of shock, but let's do it. Okay, cheers everybody.